After Russia's expected veto in the Council last week, Western nations were quick to move the resolution to the General Assembly, where its special emergency session on Ukraine remains active.
This is not a moment to stand on the sidelines. This is a moment to stand up for the UN Charter, for its values, for its principles, and for its purposes. And if Russia chooses to shield itself from accountability, then we will take further steps in the General Assembly to send an unmistakable message to Moscow that the world is still on the side of defending sovereignty and protecting territorial integrity.
Unlike Security Council resolutions, G8 texts are not legally binding, but provide a global barometer on key issues amid efforts to further isolate Russia at the UN.
The General Assembly resolution will have two important effects. One, I think, is that if there is a big majority against Russia, that will torpedo Vladimir Putin's claims to be a standard bearer for anti-colonial feeling. And it will secondly show that what's happening in Ukraine is not just a local conflict between Russia and NATO. It will show that the question of territorial integrity, which is what's on the line, is a matter of global concern.
An intense lobbying effort is underway behind the scenes, with Western nations seeking a supermajority in the Assembly, while Russian diplomats are pushing for a secret ballot instead of a public vote, after its annexation of 4 partially occupied Ukrainian regions of Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson and Zaporizhzhia.
We know that only a very few countries, such as Syria, are likely to actually vote with Russia. But the big question is, what do some major non-Western powers do? Will China support Russia, or will it abstain? And if China abstains, is that a message to Moscow that Beijing is tired of this war? Similarly, India is potentially going to abstain, and that will be an important message to Russia from an important partner on the world stage. There's a big focus on Africa as well. Russia has been trying to persuade African countries that it is an ally in a long-term anti-colonial battle against the West. Ukraine and its friends are telling African diplomats, no, Russia is now fighting in an imperial war. You should be back in Kiev.
While the UN chief has been remarkably pointed in his criticism of Russia's annexation efforts.
It stands against everything the international community is meant to stand for. It flouts the purposes and principles of the United Nations. It is a dangerous escalation. It has no place in the modern world. It must not be accepted.
Only 100 countries voted in favor of a similar GA resolution in 2014, seeking to affirm Ukraine's territorial integrity after Russia similarly annexed Crimea. In a letter to UN member states, Russian Ambassador Vasily Nebenzia referred to this resolution as a sham and a clearly politicized and provocative development aimed at further dividing UN member states, proposing a secret ballot that could shield countries from further scrutiny depending on which way they vote. Western diplomats, though, have indicated that they expect a public vote once debate on the resolution concludes later next week. Sherman Bryce-Pease, SABC News, New York.